is standing by with Minister Motsoaledi, who our President Cyril Ramaphosa has currently just arrived in New York. Sherwin.
Thanks so much indeed, and we got very, very lucky. Minister Motsoaledi, of course, accompanying the President on that transatlantic flight, that South African Airways flight, just arrived. I saw him in the lobby of the hotel. I grabbed him. I didn't know that he had just got off a plane, and asked him if he would talk to us, and he very kindly agreed. Dr. Motsoaledi, a very warm welcome back to the United Nations, back to New York, and thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you, Sherwin, and thank you to the viewers out there.
The focus, of this high-level meeting is so broad, and sometimes we forget that there's so many things that happen outside of the general debate. You are here particularly to lead South Africa's delegation in terms of the high-level meeting on tuberculosis. There's also a high-level meeting on non-communicable diseases. Tell us what the focus will be and why you have chosen to spearhead these two meetings.
Well, may I also add, I'm not only here to lead South Africans, but to participate as the global chairperson of the Stop TB Partnership. I'm presently the sitting chairperson of Stop TB Partnership. And remember, it is the Stop TB Partnership that requested this high-level meeting on TB, because we deal with TB issues around the globe, and TB is now #1 killer of all infectious diseases. And it was the only disease that was never given attention by a high-level meeting of heads of states. You are aware that HIV/AIDS has been here to United Nations. Ebola has been here to United Nations. Non-communicable diseases have been here. This is going to be the third time. Antimicrobial resistance has been here in 2016. So it was during the debate on antimicrobial resistance where I was participating as the chairperson of Stop Partnership, and I asked a question: how do we defeat antimicrobial resistance when one third of it is because of drug-resistant TB? So if we don't tackle TB, we won't win the battle against antimicrobial resistance, which the world is, by the way, scared of. So the United Nations agreed. They scheduled a debate, a high-level meeting on TB, and here we are. So it's a dream come true for us in the Stop TB Partnership. So I'll be participating as both the Minister of Health in South Africa and as the global chairperson of Stop TB Partnership.
Thanks for the clarification, Minister. Of course, you look at the numbers, right? About 1.7 million people globally die from TB every year. And if you look at the map of its prevalence, it's Africa, it's Southeast Asia, it's not so much prevalent in North America, Australia region. So this is very much a developing country concern.
Well, look, TB is a socio-economic disease of the poor, but I must state now it's a world concern. That's why it's coming to United Nations. You are right, Sherwin, it was ignored because it was regarded as a disease of the developing world. I must tell you, now most countries, even Europe, are starting to realize that TB is a problem. I mean, it's killing 1.5 million people per annum. And without really comparing diseases, you are aware what happened during the Ebola epidemic in West Africa. Some 4 years ago, the whole world was moving in a whirlwind. At the end of it, 11,000 people had died globally because of Ebola, but 1.5 million of TB. But that did not even make any blip on the radar screen. The world just ignored it, but it's continuing to kill and kill and kill. As I'm speaking now, 10 million people globally have got TB, and only 6 million are on treatment.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Minister, but also there hasn't been the level of investment in pharmaceuticals, in research, in terms of the drugs required to combat this. I mean, where are we on that score, and what sort of money are we going to need to move this process forward? Yes,
indeed, you are right. It's one of the things we are going to discuss with the heads of state. For 50 years, we've been using the same treatment for TB. There was no investment on research and development for new drugs. It's only recently that new drugs are coming to the pipeline, like pitaquilin, delanamide, but they are coming after 50 years. So you are right, and unless new drugs come into the pipeline, we won't defeat this pandemic. It is scary, but it doesn't scare anybody, because TB has been with us for 200 years, because it's not a drama queen, TB. It kills very silently without anybody watching, but when you check the numbers, they are scary. Now the other diseases are dramatic in the way they enter the world, and everybody knows about them. but the number of people who end up dying are not as many as what TB is doing. I mean, I'm repeating again and again and again. It is number one killer of all infectious diseases globally. Number two, it contributes 1/3 to antimicrobial resistance. That means 1/3 of all the diseases that are refusing to be treated with known treatment is because of TB. So there's no way the world can ignore it, and it's going to affect economies in a way unimaginable.
The South African mission here has been spearheading negotiations around this resolution that will be adopted this week. What is this
declaration?
It's a declaration. What does this declaration set out, Minister?
Well, the declaration is very simple. It's based on what you call 5 asks. In November last year, in preparation for this high-level meeting, the World Health Organization, the Stop TB Partnership, which I'm chairing, the Russian Federation, had a joint meeting in Moscow to prepare for this. That meeting was opened officially by the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, yes. The Deputy Secretary General of United Nations, Ms. Amina Mohammed, was there. The Director General of the World Organization, the Executive Director of UNAIDS, they were all there, and we discussed 5 asks. These are the 5 main things we're going to ask heads of states to consider as our leaders, because we said this matter has gone beyond the ministers of health. Now, one of the asks, of course, is the new drug pipeline and research and development. So one of the most contentious issues was that there were countries in the developed world, the US unfortunately amongst one of them, and especially the US, who were worried about the wording in the declaration about TRIPS flexibilities, the trade-related international property rights in terms of research and development, the pipeline of new medicines, because they thought it will sort of dampen research and innovation.
Is this a matter of generics being used and that kind of thing?
Yes, it's about generics, but a pipeline on new drugs, and it's more or less mostly about intellectual property.
Of course.
That if we use, obviously, the US is a main contributor to the whole world about R&D, research and development. That's not something that is up for debate. We know it. Most of the research and development in pharmaceutical companies come from the US because it's the biggest economy on earth. So the argument is that if we include TRIPS flexibilities, that means trade-related intellectual property rights in the TB declaration, then people who innovate new drugs will lose out. But you are aware that this issue has been debated by the World Trade Organization, WTO, by the World Intellectual Property Rights, WIPO, by the World Health Organization, WHO, about the balance. Because while research and development is important, how do you research and develop new drugs which the world can't use because they are beyond the reach of the most of the world? So you need a balance. That, yes, research and development, but what about human interest?
So does the declaration achieve that balance?
Well, Japan came in to try and strike the proper wording and mediate, and I think that mediation works, and we're happy about it.
Minister, let's just shift focus for a minute. Our sympathies to you and your colleagues. Of course, the passing of your comrade and cabinet colleague, Edna Molewa, the Environment Minister. She was a regular feature in New York, whether you're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, whether you're talking about her spearheading South Africa's negotiation prowess in terms of climate change. Share a few thoughts with us. How are you feeling? How's everyone doing? Very sad news indeed.
Oh, it was devastating, Sherwin. It was devastating. You are right. She was a leader in that field of climate change, environmental safety for all the citizens. She was right there in the forefront and very dedicated. We were devastated, absolutely. The past 2 weeks have not been very easy for us. She came back from Fokak.
China, right?
Yes, in China, where she came back very sick. And we were very hopeful, especially us in the health sector who were interacting with her every day. I personally was visiting her in hospital every day. She sits next to me in cabinet and in many other forums because her same names are, Motsoaledi and Molewa next to each other.
Right.
Yes, so I was very close to her. We're following each other's progress. And By the middle of this week, we were very hopeful because she could speak to us now, but all of a sudden things change. It's just still so unbelievable. You'll hope it's something that is temporary, that is going to pass, but unfortunately, the reality is that it's not going to.
Minister, we had the privilege of interacting with Minister Molewa many times when she came here. In fact, one of her stops was the SABC whenever she came. And one thing that struck me about her, similar to what strikes me about you, is the granular detail of her understanding of the issues. Whether you're talking about the international treaties, whether you're talking about domestic policy, she really knew the legislation, and that was the foundation on which she built her record. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, I do agree, because as I'm saying, I know her. I was not aware that you are also classifying me in that category, but I know, yes.
It's a compliment, Minister.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you very much. It's not usual that you get a compliment from the media, especially when you work for the Department of Health. But thank you for that. Yes, you are aware, you are right. She does have those granular details, especially about environmental matters, climate issues, She was busy fighting, this rhino poaching. And she was winning, as we saw the figures of rhino poaching coming down. It was because of the granular details she knows about the work she does.
Okay, Minister, thank you so much for coming to speak with us. I know you've just got off a long flight. You can get some rest. You have a busy week ahead. Thank you, sir.
I figured a busy day already, not a week. We're starting today to get very busy. But thank you very much.
Okay, so no sleep for this minister, Motsoaledi, speaking to us here live outside the hotel where he and the South African delegation will staying. He says it's a busy day today. Of course, a big day for South Africa will be Monday when they kick off the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit. It's back to you in studio.